Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. It's my first time here. I'm new here. I know that many of you know each other for a long time. My area of expertise is Islam in Crimea and Islamic groups in Crimea, from where I moved to this gender issue, gender topic. It's quite new for me too, because I mainly worked. I was mainly doing my research on ethnic identity of the Crimean Tatars and but couldn't go away from this topic of gender relations in contemporary Crimea. We are doing research on different transformation after the Crimean annexation, and the topic I'm going to talk today is it's fascinating, and I hope you'll share my idea about it. So, women. We have there is a huge amount of literature on women in conflict during interethnic wars and crises, and the majority of this literature portrays women as victims, and they are surely, but we have now a growing number of literature which are trying to see women as agents who are actively involved in conflicts as, for example, participants or fighters or supporters of some conflicting sides. And in this amount of literature, we're also witnessing this trend in trying to analyze how gender roles changing during the conflict and how this idea of women empowerment women increase in decision making is coming into play. And my idea is my presentation is going to show you how after this Crimean annexation of 2014, these gender roles in Crimea changed and women empowerment came into play as unexpected consequences of this annexation. The focus of my research is women of such organization as Crimean Solidarity. I'm not sure, I don't know how you're familiar with it, but it was organization created by wives and mothers of men who were arrested by Russian persecution services. And this organization, these women later joined by civil activists, human rights activists, and also some people from Crimean Tatar national movement. And now it is quite influential and very active civil society institution in Crimea. And I think I'm not wrong in saying that it is one of the most active civil society institution in contemporary Crimea. Because situation with civil society in Crimea after annexation it's really bad now. So, a few words about this Crimean Solidarity Organization. What is interesting about it is that it is based on such group which is called Hizb ut-Tahrir. It's Islamic Party of Liberation that was created in 1950s in Jerusalem. An idea of this organization was to reconstruct the Islamic Caliphate, which was once existed and then one abolished in 1924. And this group, Hizb ut-Tahrir, was very active among the Crimean Tatars in the post-Soviet period of Crimea. Moreover, Crimea was this coordinating center of Hizb ut-Tahrir activity in the whole post-Soviet area. So this is quite Islamically oriented people with this political agenda of creating this caliphate. And during the all post-Soviet period, this group was particularly concerned for the secular parts of the Crimean Tatar society and secular organizations such, for example, as the Mejlis, the representative bodies of Crimean Tatar people. What is also interesting about this Crimean Solidarity is that it has very hybrid structure and discourse, because the core of the organization is Islamically oriented people, Hizb ut-Tahrir members, but also the members of this group are trying to share this organization by including some principles and concepts of secular Crimean Tatar organizations, such as, for example, the Crimean Tatar national movement that was created in 1950s in the places of the Crimean Tatar exile, and also some concept of the Mejlis, for example, this very powerful concept of deportation as trauma that, were shaping this Crimean Tatar identity for the whole post-Soviet period. My paper tells how after the annexation of Crimea, the gender roles have been changed in Crimea, because if we look at this traditional, if we look at gender roles within this Crimean Solidarity Organization, it was very traditionally organized, Men were breadwinners, family were large, women had 3 up to 8 children, and they usually were not working, they were sitting at home and taking care of their children. And this was before 2014. But when these men, the husband of these wives, were arrested, these women faced numerous problems. The first of them is, this need to face this problem. Because before that, it was very common for them that the decision maker of the family were husband. And after the husbands were arrested, it was very difficult for these women to came to the idea that it is a time when they are the decision maker. And many women whom I interviewed during this study said this is the most difficult for them, to understand that they are decision makers and they should, take all responsibility for all decisions they make for them, for their children, and also for the elderly people hurting. The second very interesting thing that these women changed personally very much since the arrest of their husbands and sons. They changed because they became stronger. They changed their attitude to life, to their family, to the all events which are taking place in Crimea after annexation. And many of them said that we are not the same as we used to be before the annexation. We're completely different people. We even didn't expect that we can do those things we are doing at the moment. And also very important issue which these women are facing at the moment is this necessity to find a job. Although some charitable organizations, Crimean Solidarity itself, some relatives are helping these women, they are not able to cover all expenses. And these women are now looking for a job, and the problem is they have many children, they don't have any work experience, and the whole economic situation in Crimea not in good now at the time. It's really, really big issue to find any appropriate job. So they're enjoying some part jobs at the moment. What is most interesting about this women gender issue in annexed Crimea is this Muslim women activism in Crimea. Before 2014, some women of Crimean Solidarity were active in public life, but they had this very narrow niche of activity. For example, it was some organizations for providing counsel women in scarves how to deal with the authorities, or, for example, how to deal with some domestic violences and so on. But today, if you look who are representing Crimean Tatars at the international arena, at international organization, you can find particularly those women who were, not at that place at all before. What interesting, this Crimean Solidarity has 3 main branches of activity. First is information, the second is human rights, and the third, education and social domestic issues. And in all 3 branches, women of Crimean Solidarity plays very, very important role. All of them recognize that their involvement in Crimean Solidarity opened up new horizons for them in personal and professional development. It is a personal growth, intellectual development. They got the opportunity to continue education. They also acquire some professional skills, for example, as human rights defenders. Along with all this, there is a huge sense of insecurity which accompany all the activities, and also a sense of guilt for not paying enough attention to their own families. Because before 2014, they were completely involved in their families, and now they're not able to do it anymore. And this is a huge psychological feeling of guilty, that they're not doing right thing, actually. Also, all this activity of these women is accompanied by these internal family discussions when these wives and husbands are talking about how they live and does this the right way of living? Is it secure for them, for children to continue this human activity? And very often these women are faced with a dilemma to stress the idea that they're needed for this organization. Their help is needed, so they can just stay aside and do their wife's job only. So they are needed to be involved in all these activities and to defend this right for self-realization at the same time. All women which I interviewed during these studies said that, they're able to influence the decision-making process within the Crimean Solidarity, that men are listening what they're saying, although they recognize that there are cases when men trying to show some superiority and show the place of women, somewhere in the corner. But generally, it's quite, according to them, it's quite professional environment. Professional in the sense that they can do their jobs well, and they can influence and they can make some decisions, and it's very important for them to be, heard at that time. So I don't want to take much of your attention because I know there might be a lot of questions. I want to sum up, I want to just mention a few moments. Probably those of you who work in gender studies know this famous gender theorist Judith Butler, who said a lot about Palestinian women living in occupation. And one of her fascinating note is that, there are certain kind of unexpected results that can emerge from the situation of oppression if you have resources and you have the collective support. And this idea or this phenomenon of Crimean solidarity, it is particularly this unexpected result, and Muslim women activism, this particular unexpected result which none of us in Crimea expected at all before 2014. Because it gives, it's due, first of all, to the lack of human resources inside the Crimean solidarity. It motivated by the need for self-development, personal growth. And if you ask me about the future prospect of this Muslim women activism in Crimea, I don't know what to say because, the future is very uncertain. From one point of view, if this pressure on men will continue, women can be more involved in human rights and other activities within the Crimean solidarity. But from the other side, it could be on the contrary. It could be this move to traditional gender roles, even more than they were before 2014. So it's just the beginning of this study, and I hope that we'll have enough evidence and enough things to see. I just want at the end to show you a few. Could you please? I can do it myself. Okay. I want to show you just few pictures. Okay, this is the annual meeting of Crimean Solidarity, just to show you how it is going on. So the room is symbolically divided into the men and women part, and you see this very separation according to Islamic rules, not mixing of strange women and men. And you can see that women all dressed, most of them dressed according to Islamic way of dressing. Here you can see this Muslim young woman who is preparing to make statement during these monthly held meetings. They're at the presidium and they're going to be ready to address the auditorium, which you see before. And here you can see this younger generation of Crimean Tatars, the children of those who were arrested, who are also involved in some initiatives of the Crimean Solidarity.
Let's move to the discussion, and you will have, while answering your questions, you will have time also to show us the pictures.